Yes, we're going back to the Kingdom Hearts well, mainly because of the 2.8 collection released for its 15th anniversary, reminding me this was a series I could still mine for review content. Now, as I said when I reviewed the first game, I don't get Kingdom Hearts. I have nothing against it. I understand the appeal of the franchise crossovers, but I've never had the moment that everyone else seems to describe as the magic one, where they fall in love with it despite its flaws. And the story, even by fans' admission, gets too ridiculously convoluted for me to find it a good one, as harmless as it is.
Though that's usually because of the haphazard way the series' main writer, Daisuke Watanabe, executes overarching plots versus the individual location and event scenarios that he is far better at.
Which is more of a polite way of saying, since Hironobu Sakaguchi left Square, their games have more and more possessed shitty main stories. Usually so they can focus on over-developing the graphics as opposed to the work that should be done on anything else. Case in point, Final Fantasy XV's relatively recent release, where the common critique of the game was the story sucked, when they were critiquing a game in a genre where the story is the most important aspect of the game, over any element of its gameplay, so should be the primary focus of praise or condemnation.
To be fair, from what I learned of 15, it's still far more coherent than the mess of any of the Lightning Saga games, and they did rebuild it several times to make it more playable and understandable, and actually bothered to continue trying to fix a lot wrong with it up to and past its release date. So it's ultimately deserving of the positivity it's received as they showed effort. But honestly, I'm not interested in playing that one at all, mainly due to its storytelling issues being compounded by its spin-off material being mandatory to understand it. Spin-off material should not be required to make the main story of something make sense, only provide additional expansion on already present lore and events. If it's required information to understand what's going on but is not included in the central story, you are failing as a storyteller.
Besides, I still have a bunch of older Final Fantasy games I actually want to talk about, so by the time I'd get around to it, Kingdom Hearts 3 will probably have been released. Yeah, I don't expect to see that until 2020 at the earliest.
Speaking of, though, many have mentioned that I failed to even touch upon several of the Kingdom Hearts Final Mix bosses exclusive to that version when I reviewed it.
And I have to apologize on that one. I went through the game with my old guidebook of the original version to play through it, and forgot to check for any of the new content like that. It was not my intent to skip it, but frankly, I can barely touch Sephiroth, let alone the freaking Ice Titan, which I always fail against because I can't properly time the bouncing of the ice spears. So I doubt I'd have done much better against any of the other new secret bosses.
But yeah, instead of doing what most people, including my fellow reviewers, do and go straight to 2, I thought it might be better, since I already have issues with this series' inconsistent storytelling, to learn what went on between the two games in their chronology.
At least from Sora's perspective. I'll leave the Organization 13 prequel 358 over 2 days until after 2 to more take things from the chronological game release perspective. I'm debating tracking down a copy of the DS game or just doing a review of the cutscenes. Would probably be more coherent to mix the two together.
Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories was originally a Game Boy Advance game which was remade into a PS2 game, Chain of Memories, around the time of Kingdom Hearts 2's release, because the Kingdom Hearts production staff had chosen to elevate the story of that spin-off game to be more relevant to the second game's story, meaning technically it is Kingdom Hearts 2, just not focused on the main story the two numbered Kingdom Hearts have made the central conflict.
Really, every Kingdom Hearts spin-off game is like that. Should be a numbered game due to how they make it important, but refuse to do so because I have no idea.
The game picks up pretty much where Kingdom Hearts 1 left off, with Sora then encountering a man in a hooded cloak,
which has been cosplayed at every single convention I've ever gone to since 2005.
Sora is tempted with what he wants most, a reunion with his friends, into coming to the hooded man's lair, Castle Oblivion.
It's a trap!
Immediately upon setting step inside, the trio are affected by its power, warping their perception to be focused on delusion, and over time losing their memories only to be replaced with new ones the castle's creators have influenced.
And you know what? For the most part, that covers every single odd story event in this game. Their minds are being messed with. They don't know or realize their minds are being messed with. And they were dropped into a situation where very few people would even bother to tell them the truth in the first place.
The oddities in every world they revisit in this game system where things are messed up, They're all manifested from Sora's memories, which, by the place's own managers, admit are being turned to Swiss cheese, and they're oblivious to that.
Now, why are the rulers of the castle, Organization 13, even trying to screw with Sora's head in the first place? Pretty obvious, really. They want the Keyblade and its wielder on their side. The best way to do that was to fool him here, with words of his friends being here, which in his naivete will make him come running. And from there, all that's needed is to just occupy him until he's just an empty shell for programming. It's a pretty damn good scheme, all things considered.
Especially since Sora is a Keyblade wielder with no formal training to reject these kinds of mental attacks. All the first game put him through were tests of the heart, conviction, compassion, and his capability to grow, which are all common ways the Heartless would try and attack someone. And Sora survived becoming a Heartless with all of those intact enough to become himself again on his own, showing his true worth as a Keyblade wielder, especially in comparison to Riku. There's not that many things out there which go for the direct mind screw, especially ones that's designed to act subtly and take first from someone things that don't seem to be at the forefront of their minds, unraveling that person's thoughts and memories from the untongued chain of thought and memory.
And yes, I am praising the hell out of this idea of putting someone through this, as it makes almost every major story event for the game work for me through the lens of the protagonist's memories and perspective being unreliable, and by proxy selling Organization 13 as competent villains with this plan.
Unfortunately, their execution of it kind of shoots itself in the foot, as it's the organization's own members which leads to it backfiring. But again, done in a way that informs character, that despite what resource it may garner them, destroying someone to get it may just not be worth it. Especially since what they say they desire is to unlock the mystery sealed within one's own heart.
I think what intrigues me more is what you see in him.
Because damn it, everything is gay about this!
At least that's what I get from and all applies to Axel, the red-headed one that seems to be the breakout character of this group. Larxene the blonde is more of a playful child who doesn't take anything seriously as long as she gets what she wants, while Vexen, a researcher, acts like he has a stick shoved too far up his ass, which influences his data and project developments. And then there's Marluxia and his majestic pink mane, and dear God, do I want that scythe! I don't care if it looks tacky as hell, that thing is awesome!
It's also a customizable, high-impact sniper rifle.
Even more awesome! This whole thing to wipe Sora and turn him into their puppet is actually Marluxia's scheme, too. As with Sora under his control, he can usurp power in the organization because,
Cliche evil bad guy backstabbing? That's all I got. So we have no insight into his motivation or wanting to become the head of the organization, alongside Larxene, who's his accomplice. And I checked the Kingdom Hearts wiki, his reasons why are not stated. And it's kind of a big detail to have a bad guy who has no reason to be the bad guy.
I honestly give him something of a pass on that, as he is managing a decent plan, which is a subversion of what his actual bosses want him for. It's just others become aware of his treachery over time, and that's what makes the bigger plan to brainwash Sora fail, with Axel later trying to take him out himself after both Vexen and Larxene fall to Sora. Vexen's role? He's developing artificial people, having created a replica of Riku, which is used as part of the greater plan to urge Sora deeper and deeper into the castle. This detail, however, is only uncovered with time. As he's initially introduced, you initially think this is the real Riku. The organization members weren't lying, and the place just Swiss cheesed his memories like Sora's were, which would more easily stimulate him falling back into the corruption of darkness, because he was already just a hair's breadth from taking the path of Sasuke, Super Douche, Uchiha.
Never go full Uchiha. Or Starlight Glimmer for that matter.
Over time, however, the story more and more hinges on someone Sora only just remembered. The one that can actually manipulate memories, named Naminé. Naminé is the route by which the organization planned to control him, as by inserting herself into his memories, all of Sora's emotions and virtues that made him a worthy wielder of the Keyblade would be tied to her. But, ironically, that honest belief in what he feels is real even if his memories are not, results in this all ultimately backfiring, as Naminé can't go through with destroying Sora's mind utterly like Marluxia wants. Made more critical of fact when you learn that Naminé is Kairi's nobody.
Okay, yeah, I brought these things up in the first Kingdom Hearts review. Let's go over that again. When someone falls to darkness, their emotions split from their bodies and become heartless. Everything else that was what the person was, even if their body is left intact, becomes a nobody, a being without a heart that is seen as merely an echo of the original self. But by that proxy, I continue to be confused why the names of the heartless and the nobodies aren't the opposite of what they are, since the nobodies lack hearts, and the heartless are wild emotions removed from their original bodies.
Now, obviously, with this detail in the lore, it's easy to see what happened. When Kairi lost her heart and gave it to Sora to protect it, a nobody was created from the act, even though it never used Kairi's actual body to manifest itself. And while everything I looked up on the nobodies says that's what should be happening, that does not seem to be the case. Regardless, the nobody that was created was Naminé, and she still possessed Kairi's memories, and used those as a guide to insert herself back into them and take over the love for Kairi that should be hers. But by no longer being her, she can no longer have. But by doing so, then feeling bad and ultimately finding herself unable to go through with that, I'm guessing the organization's brand of nobodies are something like the Arankar from Bleach, and that they've regained aspects of themselves that were thought to be lost when they were swallowed by the darkness.
It would make the most sense to me in how all of the organization nobodies appear to have emotions and personalities, and in Namine's case is able to have empathy and feel compassion for what Sora is doing for her, even if it is based on a lie, despite the fact their metaphorical heart is gone.
And thus another reason why I give the story for this one a buy, as over time it's revealed to be more of a character piece tied to both the strength of Sora's emotions for them to shine through the haze brought from false memory, and how these shades of self aren't all that different from those they are born from.
But I've spent this long being positive about the story, and yet left alone a detail I usually cover before I get to going over such material. And there's a good reason for that. As you would expect from Square Enix, they are utterly incapable of actually making an action RPG stylized battle system without completely fucking it up.
Okay, look. I know the card system comes from the original frickin' game on the GBA, and I like how they chose to retain that to keep such contiguous since it factors into the story.
Unlike everything we've been told thus far about Final Fantasy VII Remastered, where they derided the original's battle system as too old, despite it being a critical element to the game's original story because they once again want to make it into a slow as hell to play action RPG system. I have no idea why Square hates turn-based systems these days, as it's only when they tried to mimic ARPG and real-time battle systems did they start to suck.
But this card-ass system completely killed my enjoyment dead of this entry. Upon entering Castle Oblivion, the first thing everybody forgets is their spells and how to fight. The attacks, movements, and means of doing crap all sealed into cards.
Including Donald and Goofy, meaning, once again, the two are utterly useless and fail to be productive party members.
To battle things in the castle, you need to build a deck of cards, made up of keyblades, basic spells, and items, to kill the Heartless and other enemies you fight, and each keyblade card having different attack power not tied to Sora. As you face them, you're given cash and experience crystals, which disappear if you don't retrieve them in the middle of battle, by the way, with Sora's level ups giving you the ability to choose whether he gets a new skill that can be used from comboing cards together, his HP goes up, or if a value called CP increases. CP is tied to the number of cards you can use in a deck, with each card you get having a value for use, with the yellow numbered cards being premium ones that cost less to use, but vanish permanently when you reload. Reload being an action that resets the battle deck for use, though at a rate of diminishing returns, where eventually every card you use will no longer be able to be reloaded at all. Meaning, yes, you could build a good deck, but still lose to an enemy because you ran out of cards to use for attacks, which makes the system itself utterly ridiculous. This stupid card system was what I had the most trouble with for 3 critical reasons. 1. It's limiting when, how, and the ways you can attack, which is death to any ARPG system, and the elements of them Square has fucked up nearly every time they've attempted this.
Again, the original Kingdom Hearts games, they admittedly get closer to actualizing such, but it's still very inconvenient to use any skill that's just not a basic attack.
2. The trump carding. Every battle card is given a number from 0 to 9, which are assigned at random when you pick them up. At random. As you can guess, the higher the number, the more powerful the card. You would think. Not so. Instead in battle, all your enemies can play their own cards that, if they have a higher number than your own, will cause your attack to be utterly negated.
Problem was, in my experience, nearly every card I had would get negated no matter what number it was if I timed an attack wrong, regardless of numeric counters on the opponent's cards, or even the miscellaneous minions. Mind you, for most of the game, I only had cards that maxed out at a 6. It took me until I was in Monstro and exploited a free cards cheat to actually get anything that wouldn't cause me to need to reload a past save after even the common bad guys would kick my ass from card depletion, mostly because the random generation of the cards from battles and sales packs kept utterly fucking me over!
Which leads to 3. The random drop nonsense of them. You are astoundingly unlikely to get any of the battle cards required to even play the game in battle outside of very rare circumstances or story events. You only ever find them in the overworld fields and from chests, and you have a very slim chance of even that happening, as often the cards spawned from Hidden Crap are just other map cards that are worthless with regards to actually progressing any aspect of your battle capacity, which leaves you for the most part defenseless against the bosses unless you are ridiculously lucky. Even using the map cards, which you use to progress through each themed floor of the castle, to create areas where battle cards would spawn, either from chests or to buy them from the Moogles, didn't work very well. I rarely got the chest room cards, and the Mog Store cards packs, on top of still being randomized, are very expensive in comparison to the paltry sums of currency you earn in the game. You're more likely to max out your capacity for treasure cards, dump them all, and then grind until you're maxed out again than you are capable of getting a sufficient amount of cash to buy out all the packs and get something decent. The only ones guaranteed to give you something good are the treasure rooms of each floor, but the door cards to access those are hard to get. And to make all of this worse, all 3 of these are only effective to getting good versions of the common cards very late into the game. Yeah, even the treasure rooms only unlock after you are over halfway through it. After you have already had to struggle past the bosses you needed this stuff to get past in the first place.
And yes, I obviously knew about the combo and slight systems where you can add the numeric value of 3 cards together into a chain attack that prevents you from getting trumped by common cards, but you know what the average combo number was for most of the game for me? 8. Yes. Guess how often RNG screwed me over and the enemy I was fighting pulled a 9? Very often! And this wasn't even the bosses that had the ability to combo their own cards.
Worse, there are only 2 good sleights to use, and you use them in literally every situation without fail. Strike Raid and Sonic Blade. The former hitting from distance with any attack cards that equal a card combo power of 24 to 26, meaning yes, I often still got trumped by a 27 powered straight, and the latter a combination of 3 different attack cards comboing into the 20 to 23 range, which can hit several times in a row. Past that, pretty much every other one is useless or bad to use, which, to be fair, makes it unnecessary to waste level up points on getting new sleights so they can go to, things that will help you fighting with Sora, against Replica Riku who can kill you easily, or Larxene and her paralytic knives, or Vexen. Oh my god! Fuck Vexen! Seriously, this bastard is one of the hardest middle-of-the-game bosses I have ever encountered. This guy is as strong as other games' extra bosses simply by virtue of how many hours I would utterly lose against him until I finally got a strike raid chain going that utterly destroyed him. But that success was utterly, guess the word, achieved at random! There is no skill from a system like this. No grinding, no experience, no tactics or strategy, no simple ways to offset gameplay limitations. You are simply at the whims of RNG hell on whether you will get what you need to be able to progress in the game or even win against its boss enemies. And that is not how it should be.
As if you have to cheat in a game to get something necessary to even play it, it's not a good game. Hell, winning or losing against bosses every time came down to nothing but luck. I didn't change a single strategy between the times I won against them and the times I lost. Sure, I would rejigger my battle decks, but even the ones that would eventually get me to win against them were also the ones that resulted in me getting killed very easily. So I can't even do a breakdown of them.
Made worse is Rechain's localization makes the same damn mistake they did with Kingdom Hearts Final Mix. They changed the attack key to X like every other Western PlayStation game, when the key is normally circle for the Japanese versions of the game, but did not change the triangle key mapping to square as they originally did. Ironically, this becomes somewhat better when you get to Riku's story mode, which is called...
Yeah, Reverse Rebirth mode shows that the organization was not entirely lying about Riku and King Mickey being in the building. They were just on completely different progression tracks.
This mode unlocks after you beat the main game story, and Riku completely lacks the random drop nonsense for his cards.
No, instead you are locked into a pre-assigned deck. Is this where you got inspired for the bullshit that got pulled with the Lightning Saga's battle system, Square Enix? Cause I'm not seeing much difference from the Crystarium aside from removing movement control from the characters.
To be fair, at least Riku's card's damage output is defined by his attack power, which you can raise when he levels up. So if you focus on that and are good at mitigating damage, which I am not due to how they perma-map dodge to be out of easy tapping distance, you may be able to beat things faster with him. Reverse Rebirth also appears to showcase an attempt at redeeming Riku away from the path of the ultimate douche Uchiha, without forces him to look back on his past actions in the prior game and expand more on his perspective, how he was manipulated previously by Maleficent, and how those decisions now haunt him. The Riku replica from earlier was originally created from data Vexen gathered from him in this section, alongside other organization members, Zexian and Alexius, as a means to force him back into darkness and thus gaining power over another Keyblade candidate. Suffice to say, they fail. Though that is not so much because of Riku himself, but thanks to King Mickey's guidance alongside that of the bandaged man in red that also possesses powers of darkness. The events of Riku's story coming to make him accept his affinity for the darkness and no longer fear it, nor the possibility of Sora and his friends rejecting him or leaving him alone in it, and purge himself of Ansem's influence. You would think with all these elements of the plot dealt with then, that the two friends would reunite, and the next game would have been about them and possibly Kairi then taking on Organization 13, but no. Chain of Memories ends with Sora sealed in a Christmas ornament, lacking most of his memories or ability to function as a person, with him being put in this thing to... recover? Yeah, recover from the damage Namine did to his mind.
Unfortunately, it does not work due to Sora having a nobody, named Roxas, which actually has the actual copy of his mind that is required for Sora.exe to reboot from having blue-screened. This actually managed to explain so much about the opening several hours of Kingdom Hearts 2.
But, of course, you can't have Riku show any sign of character development, as upon seeing the state Sora found himself in due to his tireless search for his friends, proceeds to endlessly insult him for slacking off. Please.
Remind me again, why are you the one that passed the Mark of Mastery test to become a Keyblade Master when you are such an unrepentant, contemptible person, Riku? Because even when you appear to be doing the right thing going through character development, it's for the absolute wrong reasons that make me wonder how the hell you two could ever call yourselves friends. Drown in the shadows you fear, you jackass.
At least by the end of his story, he purges most of Xehanort's influence from him, so he can actually go about trying to do something to help Sora and fight the organization, alongside a bandaged man in red that, spoilers, is the real Ansem. But that's for another game I won't be doing for a while yet.
Please, for the love of sanity, tell me this is the worst Kingdom Hearts game.
Yeah, despite me, to an extent, enjoying the disjointed story elements of this one, well, in Sora's side of the campaign, as I still can't get past Riku's unjustified acts of douchebag. The gameplay system to me is utter garbage and hindered most of my interest to even get through this one. I would not in any regard recommend this, as it's easy to see why most people who talk about the series just plain skip over it. It's astounding Nomura's team chose to remaster it if the result would be this utterly awful, and not just left it as a GBA game.
And the worst thing about this is, I did it to myself. People skip over this one for a reason, and it's that there is little explained or given to lead into the Organization 13 arc. Just teases that go nowhere in the grand scheme, they're just revisited in Kingdom Hearts 2. It's just, with how neurotic I can be over plot holes and contradictions to presented material, and those being the big storytelling failings of Square since Sakaguchi left, I wanted to be fully briefed when I eventually got to Kingdom Hearts 2, and yeah, I should have just let it go.
But with how neurotic I can be about unnecessary plot points and story contradictions with respect to presented material, and such seeming to be Square's bread and butter past Sakaguchi's dismissal in their games, I really did want to see if anything relevant to the insanity that is Organization 13's arc was founded here. And there really wasn't. Just teases at details that aren't really much elaborated on past wild mass guessing.
With any luck, though, this won't be the last time we talk about a Square Enix title this year. For on top of grinding in Final Fantasy XIV for Garo Armor, there's another title from them it's far beyond time I actually got around to. One that has some polarizing mixed reception. And it's one that, even with its flaws, that I actually like.
冷たい手に引き寄せられ流れてゆく時を過ごし遠くを見た